Good morning and welcome to the ENTEQ Technologies PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll, and I'd now like to hand you over to Andrew Law, CEO. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks, Alexandra. Okay, we'll start with the usual disclaimer and then introductions. So for those of you who I haven't presented to this before, I'm CEO, over 25 years in the oil field services sector, mix of management and sales, technical, and also corporate finance and M&A. And I'd like to hand over an introduction to Mark Ritchie, who's our new CFO as of June.
Thanks, Andrew. Good morning. Yeah, as Andrew mentioned, I joined the business in June. I've spent the best part of 20 years in senior finance roles in the oil and gas and energy sectors, working with businesses very similar size and stage of the journey as ENTEQ. I've got strong experience in, expansion, internationalization, working and growing rental businesses. So feel that I can really help ENTEQ through the next phase of its journey as we look to commercialize Sabre. So very much excited about what the future holds and look forward to working with everyone. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, so to put things in context, the space we're in is drilling, so directional drilling, and that is for all types of wells, so oil and gas, obviously, but as well as geothermal, methane capture, and also ultimately carbon storage or carbon sequestration. So the technologies that we are talking about are whilst drilling, and our legacy technology, previous technology, was what was called measurement while drilling, which is essentially understanding where you are in the earth whilst you're drilling, and so giving a good, a solid record, a very accurate understanding of where you are in the earth. What we have moved on to is our latest product, which is called Sabre, which is in the steering. So we're actually directing the well whilst we're drilling, turning left, turning right, staying in seam, and that's the main technology that we are working. That's our main product. So as such, what we've been doing is reshaping the business accordingly, and what that means is we've got we've been changing our facility. So we've got a new fit for purpose rental facility in Houston. We've been doing field trials, which I'll come on to in a minute. We've divested recently the XXT, so the MWD IP, which we'll talk about. So we're very much focused on this new product. So essentially what we have is downhole electronic, ruggedized electronics and technologies in this sector. We do our own in-house manufacturing, design and assembly. And the way we work is that our customer bases are the directional drilling companies around the world and the service companies, so the oil field service companies around the world, both large and small. So we have facilities in Houston, like I mentioned. We've got a technology development facility in Cheltenham, and so we're based. Mark is based up in Aberdeen as well. So just a kind of comparison of or an explanation of what a rotary steerable system is. So like I say, it's a system for when you're drilling, you can direct the well, you can steer the well either left, right, up, down, and you can stay within the seam, you can stay according to the well path. And what we see on the left here is how traditional rotary steerable systems steer, and what they have is that sort of curved, this blue and silver, in this case, pad, which forces itself against the formation and it opens up and pushes against the formation So it steers in that way. But what's happening is that the bit and the tool in that case is rotating at, let's say, 100, maybe 200 revolutions per minute. And that pad is opening and closing for each revolution. And it's pushing against the rock. So there's quite a lot of forces, quite a lot of wear and tear that's exerted onto that, or it's exerting onto the rock, and it's subject to that wear and tear. So that's the sort of traditional of what ENTEQ has in the picture we have here is we have a new way of steering, which is based on sorry, I've just got a network connection here. Alessandro, is there any issue there?
We can still hear you.
Are you okay?
We can still hear you, but what we're going to do is I might take your camera down just to preserve your audio. I'll do the same for you, Mark, as well.
Yeah, fine. Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks. So what we have is a unique concept that Shell discovered. They discovered it by accident. And what they discovered was that when they had a blocked nozzle, it actually created a pressure differential. And that's what we've done in our system, creates and controls the flow. So what we see here is the red flow is essentially fast flow, high velocity flow of fluid. It's when you're drilling in a mud or water type fluid. So we see fast fluid on the top, slower, low velocity fluid on the bottom in this case. So what that does is creates a differential pressure using Bernoulli's principle. So it's exactly the same as an airplane wing. And what that does, it creates a force. So that differential pressure creates a force. And with that force, we can steer. And that's what we've demonstrated during our field testing, which we'll come on to in a minute. So what that means is with no external moving parts. So you can see down the bottom right, that's ENTEQ's version of the tool. There are no pads, there are no pistons, there's no moving parts. All of the parts are inside the tool, and that's and even then inside the tool we have very few moving parts. What we've done is also we use industry standard control system really to be able to control that valve. So it's a very unique system, and what that means is we have lower manufacturing costs, lower operating costs, and obviously reduced wear and tear on any parts. So some of the key highlights of the Sabre system is obviously there's a strong heritage with Shell. There's a large amount of development that Shell had done. And then ENTEQ subsequently, we put a lot of effort into that, and we've done a lot of testing and development. One important point is the turnaround. Because the system is so simple, we can actually turn around after an operation. We can redress and refurbish the tool very quickly, much more so than other systems. So very 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 rapid turnaround. What that means is you can then get better fleet optimization, more efficiency, etc. It's also a very portable system for any remote operations. It's high temperature, it's high temperature, so 177 degrees C. So that means it can suit the high temperature and including geothermal operations. We estimate it's around about 30% reduction in total operating costs. And we have field tested it, as has Shell. So we've field tested it successfully. Come on to that in a minute as well. So it's essentially a rugged, reliable, simple system using industry standard control system, proven system. And we know, and we've been working with partners in terms of applications in methane capture. We have a long-standing legacy customer in the geothermal space as well. So in terms of the rotary steerable market, and this is one of the reasons we're excited about this business, the rotary steerable market, and this is from a recent report from Spears, so a very credible industry known report, and this is the rotary steerable market is 3.6 billion globally, so that's a subset of the nearly 12 billion directional drilling market, but the rotary steerable market, 3.6 billion market globally. And the key regions for directional drilling, and it kind of lines up with rotary steerable as well, is US onshore is key region, international onshore, and then also offshore. And our target markets initially are the onshore market for various. It's a more addressable, more accessible market for us. And what we see in terms of the competitive space, what we see is and again from the Spears report, about 60% of the directional drilling is addressed by or dominated essentially by these top three companies, which are Schlumberger, Baker, and Halliburton. When we look at the rotary steerable revenues rather than directional, that's probably more like 80%, maybe more, are dominated by those top three industry leaders. In addition, we've got the geothermal, the methane capture, and carbon storage. So in terms of the market size, I mean, US land is 1 billion out of that 3.6 billion. So and that's a number from Spears again. And essentially that US onshore market is owned by two companies, essentially Baker and Schlumberger, and that's through a rental model called Extreme in the US for Schlumberger, and that means that the directional drilling companies, the independent directional drilling companies, that there's a rental market that's established there. Internationally, what we see is tends to be fewer availability or less availability of rotary steerable systems for independent directional drilling companies, local and regional directional drilling companies. Just so how we fit in is in terms of this sector and how we're structured. We're essentially an OEM. We provide that technology to directional drilling companies who then operate that for their end user, which would be an oil and gas operating company like an Exxon or a BP. The business model, and again, one of the reasons we're excited by and we believe in this market, is the business model which is established is essentially you operate that rotary steerable on a day rate. Some typical day rates kind of at the lower end would be about $5,000 a day, dollars US. There's ongoing additional technical support, and then there's also post operation maintenance, so redress charges, and these can be relatively in terms of these can be relatively in the order of 15,000 or much more depending on the conditions and the operating conditions. So in terms of what ENTEQ's been doing, the recent announcements we've had is we've done the field testing in Oklahoma, which was pivotal in that we've proven with a reliable control system, we've proven that this Bernoulli principle can steer. So we can steer. We demonstrated the ability to build angle, to generate and to steer up, to drop, to steer down, and to turn left and turn right. So we've demonstrated that we can control the system and that it works, which is significant development in that anything else that we have. So essentially the hard yards now are behind us in terms of having we've de-risked the project significantly because the laws of physics around Bernoulli and whether they can be controlled, we've proven that is the case, and essentially backed up what Shell had done. And then the next phase is moving into our commercial partners. So we have we've got some modifications to do, but very minor modifications that we're implementing now. And then we move into we have a commercial test partner. So that is coming up later this year, early next year, where we'll be working with a partner to run the tool, and then that is we do a couple of trial wells, and then that'll move automatically into a commercial scenario with a set day rate. So I hand over to Mark to talk to run through some of the financials.
Thanks, Andrew. So the financials to the year ended March 2023 have a slightly different look to them this year. We've obviously split the business following the sale of the MWD business between continued and discontinued. So the year saw a revenue of 6.2 million. The majority of that coming from the North American market. But when you look at the column, the discontinued 2023 column, the reasons for us exiting that market are fairly clear. Clearly the EBITDA earnings on the 6.2 million were extremely low. And further, once you reflect things like depreciation and amortization in particular, that part of the business was clearly having a significant strain on our working capital and liquidity. So the decision was taken during the year to exit that business and focus purely on the Sabre development and commercialization and have that as our business model going forward. The financial strategy now is focusing on the underlying overheads, which we are driving down as lean as we can to allow all the liquidity resources to be focused on the final development phase of Sabre, and then looking into that expansionary phase of fleet building and moving into revenue generation. If I just step through the second part, probably the more key part of the financials is in the balance sheet and our cash position. So we closed the year with $5.3 million in cash. That was following the sale of our Houston facility. So we moved from a larger owned facility in Houston to a smaller, more fit for purpose lease. And that clearly allowed us to bring our overall running costs down and improve the cash position quite significantly. The other main item on the balance sheet is the carrying value of Sabre, $6.48 million at March 23. And the further item just worth picking up on the balance sheet, you'll see is the assets held for sale of 2.1 million. That reflects the position where we have sold the MWD business. And some of that assets held for sale is on a forward deferred type model, whereby some of that cash realizes over the next 6 months through to March 24. So we still have positive cash flow of that transaction to come, which obviously will allow us to maintain our current monthly cash burn as we develop Sabre, and also utilize some of that cash to move forward into the Sabre business model. So I think just to close out the financials, clearly our financial strategy is very much maximize our liquidity. You may have seen the RNS that went out recently, at the end of September. We're approximately $5.1 million in cash. So we're very much using that to move the business through to this next phase. I will hand back to Andrew, who can continue to take us through the slides. Andrew.
Why are we excited by this opportunity? The market, it's there. The rotary steerable market is there. And it's a 3.6 billion market. It's in need of competition. Our customers need the competition, so they're asking us for it. So we're seeing a strong demand from customers, as evidenced by our recent attendance at ENTEQ, which is the Abu Dhabi, essentially the global trade show. And that's what we see. There's a demand and a pull from those customers in international and in the US, but in the international, where they need to access an independent rotary steerable so that they can compete and access projects with the can compete against the multinational service companies. So we see that. We see a need for competition. The product is now proven, so we're very happy with the product. It's a differentiated product, so it's in terms of its simplicity, its cost saving potential, and operational efficiency. So we're excited by that. And the other good thing is the business model is, it's a set business model, so we're not trying to introduce any new business model to the market. There's a market that exists. It's scalable. It's got strong margins in the rotary steerable space, and it's a recurring revenue stream. So we've got the daily rental or sale. I mean, I should say we can sell the product, or we can rent it on a day rate. But there's also, either way, whether it's sale or rental, there's a recurring revenue of repair and maintenance and redress charges, redress components. So I'll just run through some other parts. So a key point, obviously, there's an IP, which was original IP from Shell. We have the agreement, we have royalty payments that we will pay to Shell during post-commercialization and during the later stages of commercialization. And what I would say is, ENTEQ, we've added and developed our own IP, which has been granted. So that's filed and granted. So we feel we're well protected there. In terms of going back to the energy transition piece, I mean, we've got geothermal. It's a rugged environment, high temperature, high vibration, and we have long-standing relationship with some of the key customers in geothermal. So it's a market that we feel we can address. Methane abatement, again, we've had some good trials and engagement and customer involvement with the methane capture, methane abatement, and often that methane gets used for clean power generation, so it's pretty positive. And then ultimately, in terms of the carbon storage, I think that that will need rotary steerable technologies to be able to maximize storage. Obviously, ESG focus. We have a particular focus on governance for making sure that we operate effectively and safely in different countries, because we have to the global market. Note on the board. So we've just have a recent addition to the board, and in Dave McNeil. So Dave is based in Dubai. He's a long-standing industry veteran. Run rotary steerable businesses before, strong, deep directional drilling experience. So very pleased to have Dave on board. And then finally, in terms of the shareholders, I guess key point there is as directors, we have a fair sort of high ownership on the high shareholding as the directors. So that's the final slide, Alessandro. So we can go to questions.
Perfect. Andrew, Mark, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab, which is situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few moments to review those questions that have been submitted today, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. As you can see, we received a number of questions, both pre-submitted and live. And Andrew, if I could just ask you to read out those questions and give response to it is appropriate to do so, I'll pick up from you at the end.
Okay, thank you. So the first question is around what performance enhancements are we making to the Sabre testing? So those are relatively minor, definitely not fundamental changes. So minor changes to two key components of the tool. We're receiving those parts now, so we're in the case of doing some final testing on those, and then building up the tools. They're just performance improvements. So we were looking at those. We saw those parts come in yesterday, so we're reviewing those parts. So yes, I think we'll be pulling that tool, the next set of tools together in the coming months. Okay, next question is around the commercial contract. So obviously, little commercially sensitive, but it is a commercial contract which goes from initial field testing through and automatically into a commercial contract, as I've mentioned, and it has set day rate, etc. And I think so that again, that will be in coming months, early next year. That's where we'll be moving into that one. Okay, so ENTEQ. So how was ENTEQ, and where do you stand in terms of signing further contracts, expressions of interest? So ENTEQ, very busy, very positive, strong interest from customers around the world, different regions, so all the main oil and gas regions. Our approach is to work with partners in the key countries and key regions, and we've had discussions and open discussions and continued discussions with those key or certain key customers, partners in those regions. So that's something we're actively working on, is building that engagement whilst remaining very focused. So on the regions that we want to test in, and then where we want to roll out in. Mark, do you have any views on ENTEQ?
No, I think I would just echo your view, Andrew. I think clearly it's a region of significant activity in some area. I think we definitely need to have a presence. We're having some exploratory discussions around how we would do that, because it's clearly a slightly longer process. So we would like to be ahead of the curve so that we are well prepared to get tools on the ground when that would occur. So it's certainly an area and a key market for us.
Okay. So there's a question here on the phased rollout of the rental units and the key regions, and which are the key regions. So essentially the key regions are the normal oil and gas regions. So what we see in our plans is we have a rollout obviously in US onshore, we have a rollout in Middle East, we have a rollout.
Mark, I think we've just lost Andrew momentarily. What I do is I just refresh his browser, just bring him back through.
Okay. I think I know where Andrew was going with the answer. I'm happy to pick this question up.
Perfect. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I think on the question about the key regions, the key regions are North America and Middle East, perhaps longer term Asia. The key oil and gas land drilling areas. We are pulling together those rollout plans at the moment, and I think that will become more apparent as we put numbers in the market. But certainly for now, we'll be targeting the key energy sectors and the key locations attached to that.
Okay. Am I back, Alessandro?
We can hear you, Andrew.
Yeah, yes, you're back. What we'll do is we'll just keep your camera off, just to keep your audio strength throughout.
Andrew, I just picked up the annual report. I finished off that key region answer. I think you were halfway through when we lost you. I don't know if it was anything, just emphasising the points around the key markets. Yeah. So there was anything you want to finish off?
No, I think you answered it very well. I think you can cover the next one.
Yeah. So yeah, the next one, the question on our AGM statement, the cash figure of 5.1 million US, and it relates to how much of the 1.27 was payable following XXT. So we, approximately the structure of the XXT deal was over a 12-month period. So to the end of September, we've had approximately 50% of the proceeds, with the remaining balance being due in various lumps through to the end of March 2024. So we are just about halfway through that period, and that will conclude at the end of March 2024. Andrew, if you're happy, I'll just take the next question. So the next question is, what is your current thinking on funding the rollout, and do we still have the HSBC overdraft facility? So we are currently working how do we fund the rollout through existing liquidity that we have. but I think it very much becomes about how quickly can we build a fleet, and clearly, how quickly we want to do that will depend on the funding we have available. So it's something that we're very much working on at the moment. Clearly, as Andrew's touched on, we're not restrained by the market. We are currently restrained by the fleet capacity. So I think once we decide on how many tools we want to build, that will almost dictate the funding. But certainly at the moment, what we are planning is using existing funding facilities. The HSBC overdraft facility is still available, but it's not a lever we intend pulling. It's not something we've explored, given the current 5.1 million of cash. Looking at the overdraft is not in our plans at this stage. But we should rule nothing out.
Okay. Next question, and Mark, you can answer this one, is when do you expect Cavendish to put the forecast out?
Yeah, so we are working on we're very conscious of this one. We are working on a business plan with associated financials, and clearly all that will align with our commercial tests that we have coming up. So we're very keen to have them running in parallel. That first commercial job will then give us a real flavour for how we can push forward, and linked to my previous answer, how we can then roll out the tools. So it's something we're keen to address, and we would expect to do that towards the end of the year, or certainly into Q1 of next year.
Okay. Next question is when the second instalment of the Sabre webinar will be, and I'd say that webinar will be in line with our customer rollout. So that those webinars are designed very much for the customer and end users. So we'll be doing that in line with our rollout as we need. Next question is maximum temperature for geothermal work. So it's 177C, and that'll cover much of the geothermal activity. There's another question on what's the USP in geothermal. And you see it's high vibration environment, high temperature. So having a simple, robust, rugged system is essentially what's needed. Ballpark daily rate. So what's a ballpark daily rate? What's a healthy margin? And do the features of the tool warrant it to be a premium offering over competition? So essentially, the ballpark daily rate is set by the market, which is not set by us. It's set by the market, or a rate is set by the market, and that's what covered. It's in the order of upwards of 5,000 a day. Would that provide a healthy margin? Yes, that would provide a healthy margin for the business. The features of the tool are it's simple, it's lower cost of manufacture. Do we want a premium over the competition? Again, that's commercially sensitive, but probably not. I mean, I don't think we need to be providing a premium. The market's there, and our main thing, like Mark says, is we feel that we are fleet constrained rather than opportunity constrained. So i.e. there's a lot of customer demand and pull. So I think that's how we would tackle that. Next question is how long would the tool bit last in operation before refurbishment? So typically, I mean, the bit itself is very much dependent. Some bits will last for many months and many runs down hole. Some will last for one run down hole, and that's the bit. I mean, we work with bit company. The bit will be provided as normal with some minor modifications. The tool itself, the Sabre tool, how long will that last? After every run, there'll be some particular parts that will need to be redressed after wear and tear. So typically, you would do some maintenance after every run. And then what we have is, we have a modular system, so we can anything that's getting worn out, then we would replace it. Typically downhole tools like this would be, if you were to own them, would be to be depreciated over 5-7 years. Would be normal. When do you expect to be fully in the market with the rotary steerable? Again, that's we like Mark touched on in terms of scaling up the fleet. We want to scale up as fast as we reasonably can, because the opportunity is there. So it's really on how rapidly we can build the fleet. When do we expect to get meaningful revenues? That would be next year. I think it's fair to say. Mark, I don't know if you want to touch on that at all.
Yeah, I think in our current business models that we're working on, we expect between now and the end of the March financial year for us to have perhaps a couple of small revenue jobs, but they'll be with test commercial partners. And we expect from 1st of April 24 for us to almost flick into revenue earning business and building that up gradually. I think Alistair has put a question for me as well on historically we've been fairly quick getting the results out. I appreciate there are particular issues with the FY23 results, and will you return to pre-23 timings? Short answer is very much and emphatically yes, we will. We had a couple of slightly different exceptional items this year, one being a new auditor, and the second being clearly disposal of a significant part of our business. So they were pretty big items for the auditors to cover off in their first year, and as a result things ran pretty close to the wire, but that's not the intention going forward. We expect next year to be very much back to normal timings.
Okay, what's the likely cost of manufacture of the Sabre tool? Again, I probably prefer not to answer that one. It's commercially sensitive. Obviously, what I would say is we've moved we've got the focus of our development in Houston, where we can, and what we've seen already is getting much better access to supply chain in terms of speed and cost. So, prefer not to answer that one in an open forum anyway. Have we spoken to RSS competitors during ENTEQ, and what's their view on the system? Yeah, we do speak to RSS competitors. It's I guess one thing that I didn't cover, and that's a good question, is a lot of these competitors can also be customers. Some of the larger ones, larger operators or larger service companies, they may be a competitor, but they may also be a customer and a partner. So I think there's some interest there in how we can help. It could be helping on one of the good things is the size of the tool that we've developed is on the smaller size, which is good, because that's where there's often a need for a rotary steerable of that size. So yes, so I think there's some interest there. And the question here on how many Sabre systems we could manufacture per year with the existing facilities. So in terms of the manufacture, most of the manufacture is actually assembly. So we can assemble a reasonable sized fleet, in the tens, easily tens or 20s per year scale up, and with the current team. So we could go larger with that. Next question is, what market share could be achieved by an independent technology in North America? What would the revenue implication of achieving that be for ENTEQ, and what will limit fulfilling this potential? So in terms of the market for North American land, it's a $1 billion market. So if you get 20% of that, that's a $200 million business revenue. So that's not impossible. Certainly not impossible. There's a need for competition. There's a need for a simple system. And so what's the limit of fulfilling that potential? Building fleet and working with key partners in those regions. So yeah, I mean that's absolutely our target market. Ultimately. Next question, which is around forecasting revenues. I think we've covered that. That's when we put numbers out in the market, which will be in the coming months. And that, have you got any pre-production confirmed orders? I think that kind of fits in with we've got a commercial partner, field tester commercial partner, with the set rates. There's another question here. If the daily market rate is 5K and you're offering a 30% saving, does that imply a lower price? No, the market rates. I mean, the market rates are the market rates. So, and I think often I think it's a very detailed question, but in terms of the market rates and the redress rates, I think one area where we can make more of a saving is on the redress and post-job refurbishment. And the final question at the moment is: to expect the RNS at the start of test drilling. So the question is around the RNS and when we would issue that. I think we would issue that RNS to be determined. I think we would issue that RNS, but most likely when we've got successful results with that partner in particular. And any other news?
Perfect. Andrew, Mark, thank you very much for that. I think you actually managed to address every single question from investors. And of course, the company will review all the questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform.
Oh, there's one more.
Yep. Go ahead.
Which is there an exit strategy for the company? Which is, so, I mean, what I want to say is our primary focus is on scaling up this business and building this business. So, we feel if you look at the fundamentals of the market, large market, it's untapped and uncompetitive. We have a differentiated product. So our base plan, our primary plan is to make the most of that. In that we see, we believe in the tool, believe in the market, and when we believe we can scale up. So that's our primary plan. Thank you. Sorry about that, Alessandro.
No problem at all. The only thing I was going to ask you for was just a few closing comments, and then I'll redirect investors for feedback. So, yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
No, thank you very much. Thanks, as always, for good questions. I appreciate it. So look forward to talking to you next time. And what I think what we'll hope to do is do a few more investor meets. Maybe we can show some of the technology. I think that would be quite good if we could show from our Houston facility at some point. So that's what I'd like to do for you. Thank you.
Perfect. That'd be great. Andrew, Mark, thank you very much for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will then take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of ENTEQ Technologies PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning to you all.